For Christmas, there were just 3 items based on basic Christmas shapes, and reduced versions without the shapes went on before the news. The rebrand Heavy 5 thought that keeping faith with these items wasn't enough, and decided to fall back on what they did 10 years ago, with items inspired by celebrities and the shows they hosted. Not that they replaced the older ones, they were increasingly little seen by then. Even Neighbours had its own idents. They did have at the time when they got the rights in February 2008 under the lowercase era, when Ramsey Street was infested by kangaroos. Christmas '09 featured a couple idents featuring nicely animated robins. Because Christmas. One featuring a snowball, the other featuring a robin trying to catch a worm. There's actually a hole so that the 5 logo can appear. And then in 2010, an out-of-the-box Jack-in-a-Box, likely played by the son of the guy who set up Shut Up Grammatic Oil on the famous Nigerian courtroom drama Ichoku, Matter of Pride.
Shut up, Grammatic Oil!
Now here's something interesting. It's December 2010, and just a few months before, the channel was taken over by Richard Desmond's Northern and Shell, best known for owning a handful of newspapers, namely the Daily Express and the Daily Star, and celebrity magazine OK. At the time, their television interests were limited to a handful of free-to-view, pin-locked, cheap and crude pornographical channels on the Sky platform. They already had a large adult media history, all the way back to 1983, when they started importing adult magazines. It was said back then that a rebrand to Channel 5 was on the cards because Desmond thought that 5 was vague. As in what? Days of the week? Fingers? Many of the Channel 5s worldwide are known as Channel 5, regardless or not the word channel is part of their official logo.
You're watching Channel 5. Entertaining you first.
Channel 5's leaked logo for 2011 included the word channel in it, but was dropped within some time, and that time was February the 14th, 2011. That's where a new logo and a new set of items premiered centered around the studio called Stage 5. I say studio, it was more like a concept, effectively creating a versatile set of items where the 5 was the center of just about anything you can imagine. For Christmas, they just had baubles. I mean, that's all you have for Christmas. You wasted all your potential at the studio in Prague to film the damn things, and then just run out of money for Christmas. This isn't new. And this time it wasn't a sign of delaying the inevitable, because Channel 5 didn't even rebrand in 2013. Also, we're now in the Big Brother age of Channel 5, and honestly, had they accepted Big Brother back in 2000, they might have followed a completely different story and might have rebranded fewer times. Family Affairs would still be on air. Fun little side note, when Big Brother visited Portugal, Seek declined because it was too trashed. This ultimately gave TVI a huge boost. In 2013, instead of committing the risk of repeating BBC 2 or Channel 4, they finally got a new Christmas ident. While the bauble from the 2 previous Christmases was kept, they added new items to the rotation, keeping up with 2 trends that are unique to the channel. Number 1, they were still the only channel to rely on celebrities for their idents, a fact further boosted by ITV just stopping to use them because why not, with a special ident featuring Lady Gaga and the Muppets due to the premiere of the 2011 Muppets film. Number 2, sponsored idents. The FS, making Channel 5 home comfortable. They were probably the only British terrestrial channel to do it, and by that I mean among the first 5 to show adverts, because I'm not counting the BBC in this equation. Also, ITV and Channel 4 just don't care. 2014 gave us a complete change of tack. The main star of the year was yet another snowflake. Like the sort of things that you'll see on the olden days of BBC television, times 1,000. They were probably taken in from the success of Disney's Frozen, released the previous year, even though 1, it was too early for the film to be sold to terrestrial television, and 2, BBC One eventually had the rights. There were also sponsored idents, one being a rejigged version of the previous year's DFS ident, and the other being for TK Maxx, or TJ Maxx for our American viewers. By this time, Channel 4 was now owned by Viacom, 5 years before they were merged with CBS, effectively making them a sister channel to the more profitable international brands known as MTV, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, and equating themselves with the soon-to-be failed terrestrial channel Viva, the former TMF.
Up your Viva! Up your Viva!
Interesting thought. There was a brief experiment in the spring of 2016 where Neighbours and Home and Away aired on Nickelodeon during primetime slots, but it failed miserably.
Don't miss a moment
Oh well,
of the drama with
bad news of
Neighbours,
synergies.
weeknights at 8 on Nick.
This isn't even what they did with 21st Century Fox's assets when Disney bought them. 2015 gave us something similar to BBC Two circa 2007, except it was broad daylight. By then, they just ran out of ideas for the studio. The basic idea was kept, but the studio wasn't. It was its last hurrah, as Channel 5 was set for another rebrand. Stage 5 was introduced at a time when Northern and Shell were more confident about cross-promoting the channel with their newspapers, and backwards, because even OK had its own TV show. Under Viacom, they had to change the look and drop the studio. That look was unveiled on the 15th of February 2016, just 3 days short of the 5th anniversary of what was now Channel 5's longest-running look. Its equivalent of the Channel 4 blocks was now replaced by new blocks of its own. A segmented numeral, a 5 made out of 5 segments. For my money, this is the best logo Channel 5 has ever got and is still in use today. But the idents simply went too far. With so many creative ideas to do with the numeral, they just opted for a set of idents that focused on spirit and emotion? I sense a little deja vu in here because exactly 10 years before, they jumped on a short-lived emotional marketing bandwagon. The worst part was that there were no Christmas idents at all for the first time in the channel's history, imitating Channel 4 between 2005 and 2011. The menus, on the other hand, did actually receive a basic Christmas update. In 2017, Channel 5 got Christmas idents again, this time under some sort of advent calendar that repeated the basic concept every day up until the 23rd, because on the 24th they didn't even make an ident, went back to the same formula as 2016, i.e. no special idents. They did make a modified comeback on New Year's Eve. It still wasn't enough. Channel 5 had finally John Lewis-sized itself in 2018. Although 15 years earlier they sort of foreshadowed the future. Telling the story of the 5th bauble, who had escaped from the attic from a box of Christmas decorations, presumably the ones they were supposed to use in the 2 previous years, had they insisted on doing the bloody things. The bauble tragically had a massive obstacle. The stairs, otherwise, he would obviously break up on the way down. With luck came a cat who, with the speed of the cheetah, had finally brought him to the living room, where he would stay with other anthropomorphic baubles that appeared on the first episode of the 5-part package. Quite possibly the best idents Channel 5 had under the 2016 look, even though the 5 logo was barely seen. In 2019, we got an entire town with the 5 acting as some sort of ring, that just somewhat reminiscent of 2 BBC One Christmas idents at the same time. The one from 1980, probably because of the ice skaters, and the one from 2010. I don't know why did I pick 1980, but maybe it was because it had versions for morning, afternoon, and evening, something that BBC One did a handful of times in 1980, 1984, 1985, and 1993. The nighttime version was, citing Upper Mask, even more gorgeous. And that is it. The unthinkable happened just a few months ago at the time of recording, as CBS, who now owns Australia's Network 10, has finished its merger with Viacom, creating Viacom CBS. This just brings 10, CBS and 5 under the roles of the mermaids from H2O, Just Add Water. A weird little show I recommend. Channel 5 has just joined the group and is Ricky. Emma is CBS and already has the experience. Network 10 is just Cleo.
I will die if I have to watch a North Korean family eat breakfast for an hour in real time.
Why did I make this up?
As you can
As you can see, there's a whole lot of stuff to lose before school starts this fall. Come on, Perry. Sis, I didn't know if this was already in effective quarantine, but at the time of recording, Channel 5 unveiled a whole new look on the 26th of February, a month ago at the time of recording, giving more prominence to the numeral instead of colours reminiscent of the first look. They didn't even use yellow because reasons. Maybe the line green stands for yellow. Either that or it's a near coincidence. That begs the eternal question. What will Channel 5 use for Christmas 2020? Assuming it's the last Christmas of the internet age, because Flash is dead.
Haven't you heard? Flash is dying!
They're probably sticking to Snow on the Ident. Or maybe a repeat of the 2019 one. But for me, the real issue with unveiling a new look in the first few months of the year is the fact that you have to wait a long while to see how the Christmas ident will look like. The longest wait so far was when BBC One unveiled Oneness on New Year's Day 2017. Or if you want to go to the old days when ITV companies were unveiled on New Year's Day, West Country and Meridian. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, but I'm not going to leave you with Christmassy music. It's too early to think about that. One thing you might have learned is that Channel 5 has been a channel that's become unaware of how its identity might have worked, and it took them 14 years to achieve such long-lasting looks that made ITV1 look like Granada circa 1989. I recommend that you watch my other Christmas shopping epic that I made about S4C back in October. It was inspired by ideas trying to sell Christmas decorations. Happily surprisingly, weeks later, S4C's Twitter added some never-before-seen gems linked in the description. Or if you want to see a detailed history of Channel 5's items, please check out Tim Goodwin's Identity Crisis series devoted entirely to it. There's even one about Christmas items Channel 5 has used up until 2017 or so. Once I have the time, once I have support, you might see me do Australia in the face. I've tried to make this for 5 years. This is in the logic of God wanting, maculating the birth of another work, he's a poet. Now let's gather round the television set, telling the story of when Channel 5 was all about the 3 Fs. Films, football, and fornication.
The color of infinity inside an empty glass. It's for this experimental film which nobody knows about and which up to